Hello, puzzlers. Welcome to the Small Pieces Big Picture podcast, where you get to decide how all of your pieces fit together to create the big picture of your life. I am your host, Jason Wendroff-Ronicki. The problem I see right now is that everyone is telling you what to do. From what you eat, to the exercise routine you follow, what your mindset should be, how you should make your money, what you should do for fun, and the list goes on and on and on. And you are hurting yourself by following someone else's advice. The only person that advice is good for is the person who created it. In this podcast, I will give you food for thought and assignments on different ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. I will leave it up to you to figure out how that fits into the big picture of your life. I encourage you to get back to using your intuition of what's right for you and stop listening to the sound bites of others. All the pieces you need to fit together to be whole are already inside of you. You just need to put them together in your own unique way. So let's get to puzzling. On today's episode, I'm going to go over a simple structure on how to deal with life that can sometimes be very overwhelming. And the thing that can make the life a little bit simpler is when we can find the relationship between what we think, what we feel, and what we do. That relationship is probably one of the most critical things that we can do to start to take situations in our life and break them down into smaller parts so that we can then put them back together and be able to manage situations a little bit better. I'm going to present the information in a very linear way, but the information by no means is linear. It goes the relationship between the three things that, what we think, what we feel, and what we do all happen simultaneously and sometimes even at the same time. And this is why it's important to be able to distinguish the difference between our thoughts, our feelings, and our sensations, because then this way we can break everything down and be a little bit more relaxed about the way our life is unfolding, and then we can also learn to control the direction of our lives. And I say control, but we don't really have full control, but we can direct it and steer our lives in the direction that we want. In yoga, we talk about two different pathways of energy and the way it moves. The first is the pathway of manifestation. So what we're talking about with manifestation is the energy coming from the universe into us and then get grounded into this time-space reality. When we talk about the pathway of liberation, it goes the opposite way. It goes from this time-space reality up through our system and gets brought back into universal energy. And so things like the pathway of liberation is when we do things like we meditate and we sit quietly and we focus. The pathway of manifestation is really what I'm going to be focusing on because it brings the energy from our thought patterning to our feelings to our actions. And so this way we can take that energy and process it and create what we want to create out of our lives. Now, the first place that we bring in this universal energy is through our filtration, which is our belief systems. And a belief is, the definition of a belief is the proposition about the world that we believe to be true. Now, in fact, so let me give you some examples of some commonly held beliefs. So I mentioned a couple in my introductory podcast that I am fat, right? That is a belief system. If I believed when I grew up, I believed that I was fat, I was going to have all kinds of thoughts and all kinds of feelings and all kinds of actions that will make that factor be true. Other common beliefs are I am broke, I am tired, I am broken, sinners are bad, I am worthless, and all of these different types of beliefs, they get grounded into our experience from many different places, from our political views, from our religion, from our society, from our family. And this is one of the things why a lot of times in analysis, people go back to the parents, right? Go back to the parents to blame them for the different things that we are doing wrong as adults. But as kids, we have no choice. As adults, we have to make changes in those belief systems so that this way we can move forward and take responsibility for our actions as adults. So now there's a couple of things about beliefs that you need to know. These are the organizing factors of our life. So if I have a belief that I am always going to be tired, then I'm always going to be tired because I'm always going to do things that will drain my energy. I will feel things that will drain my energy. I will think things that will drain my energy, so that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? All of our thoughts, all of our feelings, and all of our actions organize around our belief systems. Everything in the universe, from the planets to each and every cell in our body, needs an organization system. We are designed to be organized. And so if your life kind of feels unorganized, right, it feels really pretty terrible because we thrive with organization. And so our belief system is what allows us to organize our thoughts, our feelings, and our physical sensations. Now, there's one big fallacy around our beliefs. We feel that they are true, but in fact, our belief systems are not true. They are real, yes. They organize our lives, yes. But they are absolutely not true. They are only true from our perspective, right? So holding on to a belief system of I'm always broke, right, is just relative, right? If you're earning a living and you're making money, maybe you're spending more than you're making and you feel broke, but maybe you have to learn to manage your money better. But there are people that are making way less than you are, and there are people that are making way more than you are. And when you start to compare yourself to others, that's where these belief systems seem true, but in fact that they're not. And when we can start challenging our belief systems, maybe the issue is not how much money you're making, maybe the issue is how much money you're spending, right? So we have to look at our belief systems and we have to treat them as real, but we have to look at them to see how true it really is. So there's definitely different ways of doing that, and working with a coach and doing a lot of self-exploration. There are so many things that you can do to challenge your belief systems that it is really important that we look at holding the belief systems that support us and in the direction that we want to go, and let go of the belief systems that prevent us from getting exactly what we want, exactly what we need, right? And as I said, we don't have control over it, but we can guide our boat, or guide our bodies, our lives in the direction that we want. I kind of like using the GPS example, right? We set a destination, we set a goal for ourselves, we plug it into our GPS, and then we start going. Now, you're not looking at exactly where you are. You're looking a couple of miles ahead of you, or a couple of feet ahead of you. And so that this way, every time you turn and make a wrong turn, the GPS will guide you back, right? And that's why we always have to keep managing our belief systems, because this will help to guide us back to the direction that we want to go, rather than taking us off in some other direction that we never intended to go to. You have to understand that we are vibrational beings, and where our attention goes, our energy flows. So we have the ability to focus our thoughts and our beliefs so that this way the energy can flow to those belief systems and to those thought patternings. That's why it's really, really important to cultivate and practice a positive way of thinking so that this way you can send your attention onto things that you want to see manifest in your experience. So if you have a belief that I am sick, your attention is on the sickness because that is what you're focusing on. And the universe will bring you more of that sickness. If you pivot that thought from I am sick to I am getting well, then you are focusing on your wellness, and the universe will bring you that wellness that you so want. So the other thing is that the universe does not understand the negative. So if you say, I don't want to be sick, you are still focusing on sickness and not on health and wellness, rather than pivot that thought into, I want to be well. I want to be healthy. I want to be energized. I want to be alive. I want to be whatever you want to be. That's where you want to send your attention so that this way the universe can bring more of it to you. Let me give you an example what I mean by the universe does not understand negatives. So if I tell you to not think of a purple elephant, don't think of a purple elephant. I'm telling you, don't think of a purple elephant. What is the first image that comes to your mind? A purple elephant. Even though I said do not think of that, your mind goes right to the purple elephant because that's where I have directed your attention. And so every time we think a thought that's in the negative, we're actually sending our attention to the thing that we don't want. So if I say I do not want to be sick, we're still focusing on the sickness and not on the wellness. If you're focusing on things like lack of money or lack of energy or lack of whatever, you're attracting lack more than the abundance of. So all you need to do is really start to pivot the thoughts. And it is much easier for me to say all you need to do, but it is a daily practice that needs attention and it needs focus so that this way you can learn to develop this skill of pivoting your thoughts to the positive so that this way you can attract more of what you are wanting and removing those things that are unwanted. Now let's take a look at our thought patterning, because all of our thoughts are organized by our belief systems. And we have a really, really wacky way of, let's say, looking at this belief of I am fat, because our society has a lot of judgment around people's bodies and how big they should be or how small they should be or what size they should be, how fit they should be. So this is a very, very loaded belief because of the pressure of society and all of the different thought patterns that are instilled, based on somebody's body weight. And it drives me absolutely crazy when people look at someone's physical body size and make judgments about their health because of the size of their bodies. And I've been on both sides of this equation. There have been times in my life where I was very, very heavy and overweight. And there were other times in my life where I was so thin that people were really concerned about my health. In fact, I have full control over the size that my body is, and so that this way I know I've heard the judgment both when I was overweight and both when I was getting too thin for people, and I am at a weight that I am comfortable at being. So this is a topic that I am very passionate about because I know the struggles on both ends of the spectrum. Now let's take a look at how our belief systems affect the thoughts that we think and the decisions that we make. So imagine you carry around this belief system that you're always going to be fat. And you have some extra time on your hands. And you want to make the decision of whether you should go out for a walk or you should binge watch the next 3 seasons of Big Bang Theory. If you hang on to this belief system of I am always going to be fat, right, your decision making and your thought patterning will more likely go towards the I'm going to binge watch Netflix than going out for a walk, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm always going to be fat. Now, you can always choose to challenge your belief systems by going out for a walk, but with that belief system in place, if it is really strong, it is going to direct you towards behaviors that are going to make that belief system be true. We have free will. We can choose to follow those patterns or we can break them. So the choice is up to you. And learning to differentiate the difference between a belief and a thought can be really, really confusing and sometimes very complicated as well. Because the same thing that we have a belief around may just be a thought, and the thing that we think may actually be a belief system. So it's really important to ask yourself, is this an organizing factor that I revolve my life around? Or is it just a temporary situation? If it's just a temporary situation, it's probably just a thought. But if there are many thoughts that organize around it, then it's probably a belief. So let me give you an example of how to sort of tell the difference, because for each one of us, it's completely a unique set of circumstances because we are all unique individuals. We've all had a unique upbringing and a unique way in which we've made sense of the world. So a good way to look at it is if you have this thought, I don't have any money. Now, it could be a temporary thing where maybe you have money in the bank, but you don't have any cash in your pocket, right? So that's a thought that you have, not really a belief system. But if everything that you do, you are already talking about how much money it cost. Oh, I got this on a discount. Oh, look how much I paid for this. I don't have any money for this and that and every other thing. And you're always celebrating when you get something for less, then it's most likely this idea of not having any money becomes a belief system. And then you get happy when you get things at a discount because it supports that belief system. So it's very challenging at times to be able to distinguish, but when you start to look at your own patterns of thought, you can then start to separate, okay, this is a belief system and this is just a temporary thought that I'm thinking at this moment in time. I'll be right back after this message. Now, let me introduce the concept of emotions. Emotions are the things that we feel. They are things like happiness, sadness, anger, frustration, rage, joy, excitement. Those types of things are emotions, things that we feel. Now, when we believe something, it guides our thought patterns. But from that thinking, we then have emotions. So let's have a little experience with this. If you're in a quiet space and are not driving or doing something like that, I want you to close your eyes and put your right hand on your chest. Now, if you're driving, you can just do the second part. I want you to take 3 deep breaths. I want you to feel the movement of your chest with your breath. Deepen that breath a little bit. And now I'm going to throw a thought for you to put into your mind. I am worthless. And I want you to say that 3 times to yourself. I am worthless. I am worthless. And then I want you to notice how you feel while saying I am worthless to yourself. See if you can identify the emotion that that thought brings up. Now, I want you to clear that thought from your mind. And I want you to insert the thought, I am a wonderful person. I am a wonderful person. I am a wonderful person. And then just take 3 deep breaths. And I want you to notice any shift when you pivot your thoughts. We have control of our thoughts, and our thoughts generate emotions. So this is why it's really important to notice what you're thinking and then notice what you're feeling, how your thoughts affect your emotions. And it's just like driving a car. We never let go of the wheel, right? We're always in control of the car, and we can always be in control of our thoughts. What are you thinking at any particular moment, so that this way it can affect our emotions in a very unique way? Now remember, this is not a linear process. The emotions can also affect what we think as well. So an example of this would be, maybe you got angry at something that happened, and then anger is associated with being a bad person. So our emotions can also affect what we think as well. So it goes both ways. So we have to really be careful and use our emotions as our guidance system of, are we moving closer towards alignment with our health and well-being, or are we moving away from our alignment with health and well-being? And when you feel positive emotions like happiness and joy and excitement, these things indicate that you're in alignment with your higher purpose. And emotions like anger, frustration, annoyance, those are indicator that you're moving away from that alignment. And we want to use those negative emotions as a reminder to bring us back into alignment. So it's always this pivoting system, not just with our thoughts, but with our feelings as well. And it's really critical to make sure that we're always taking the time to look inward, to noticing our experience in the moment, so that we can make these adjustments in our thoughts and in our feelings. And I want to make a distinction between sensations and perceptions. Sensations are literally the 5 senses that we use to both receive information and to release information into the universe. So that's sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. And so those 5 senses are very, very specific, because they bring in the information from the universe that we need to respond to. And then we also can respond through those different senses. Perception, on the other hand, is when the mind takes those physical sensations and processes them through our thought patterns and our feelings, and it's what we use to make sense of the sensations that we are experiencing. So let me see if I can describe the difference between a sensation and a perception. So I go to my refrigerator and I open the door, and I see a round spherical object there. It is red with it looks like a twig sticking out of the top of it. I pick it up. It has a fairly hard texture to it. I put it to my nose. I smell it. It has almost no aroma, but it smells maybe a little woodsy, and the skin is very smooth. And so as I'm touching this red spherical object and getting all of the information, those are the sensations that I'm experiencing. The feeling of this round spherical object, the smell of it, the look of it, the color of it. All of these things are sensations. Now, my mind will able to process all of that information, and identify it as an apple. So the sensations are all of those little things that our body picks up as cues before our mind makes sense of it. And perception, both sensations and perceptions, are really important in our reacting with the universe, because we need those little pieces of information so that our minds can put them together and then identify them as an apple. And then when we taste it, we eat it, and we can get all of the nutrients from it, right? So there is a huge difference between sensations and perceptions. And when we can just get to the sensory level, we can simplify things and then look at how our mind puts things together in a more complex way. So what happens is that our senses pick up the information from the universe, our mind processes it, and decides where our action needs to be taken. So this is really where our actions come into play after we've sensed something, and we sense things every minute of every day. Our brain is always functioning at processing the information and then deciding and making choices of where our action and our energy needs to be focused. So this is where actions are really important, because our thoughts control our feelings, control our actions, but then our actions can control our emotions and can control our thinking, our thought patterns. So it goes both in the direction of manifestation and in the direction of liberation. So I want to take an example. I want to start with an action and show how it can be motivated by sensations, emotions, and thoughts. So let's take the example of eating, right? Eating a meal or eating a snack, right? So there are different things that can trigger that action. So it can be triggered by sensation. So you may feel a rumbling in your stomach. It may be controlled by your emotions. Maybe you're feeling bored and need something to do. That's an emotional attachment to eating. Or it could be 12 o'clock, it's lunchtime, and that's a thought that we have that can trigger that same action. So you can have actions that are dictated by your sensations, by your feelings, and by your thoughts. And so they go in different directions. So the first step is to be aware of what's going on. So if you can take a situation that you're challenged with and separate them into your thoughts around that situation, your feelings around that situation, and then the sensations that arise from that situation, then you can make it a little bit simpler and know which areas that you need to focus. So in our example of eating a meal, if it's motivated by hunger or by sensation, then you know it's time to eat. If it's motivated by emotion, like boredom or frustration or sadness or anger, sometimes we eat because we're angry at ourselves or those kinds of things, then we can learn to shift the emotion, and then the action may or may not shift. Then if it's controlled by thought patterning, like it's 12 o'clock, it's time to eat, right? That's a thought pattern that also becomes habitual. So if we can change this thought pattern of I'm going to eat when I get hungry, then we can adjust our behaviors based on what has caused them. Once we're aware of the origin of our behaviors, then we can do things to change it. The next step after we're aware of the reasons we do what we do is to pivot what needs to be pivoted in order to change that behavior or to keep that behavior, right? So if we need to pivot the way we feel, then we can implement some strategies in doing that. If we need to change our thought patterns, we can do that. If we need to change the physical sensations that we're experiencing, we can do that. And so there are different ways in which we can pivot each of these areas. To pivot our thoughts, we just change what we're thinking about. To pivot our emotions, we can take a couple of deep breaths in just to shift the way we feel. And to pivot our physical body, the sensation, we can literally just stand up and sit down or walk to the other side of the room. Anything that changes our physicality will help to adjust what we're experiencing on a sensory level. So those are different ways in which you can pivot your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions depending on what you need in a particular situation. When it comes to overall health and well-being, we need a multidisciplinary approach to that. And that is why I totally believe in therapy, in talk therapy, because that works on our thought patterning and our emotional body. So when you're involved in therapy, you're talking about what you're feeling and what you're thinking. Doesn't necessarily change behavior. And that's where I think things like yoga and exercise come into play, because they involve the body. And when you notice, as we've been talking about, there's a relationship between our mind, our heart, and our body, and we have to involve all three. So not only do you need a mental approach through things like therapy, you also need a physical approach as well, a physical outlet to get your body absolutely involved in the process. Meditation is really great to work on belief systems. There's journaling, there's self-care, and I use those words in quotes because we do need to find ways of taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves the time that we need to take care of ourselves, to look at what we're thinking at, look at what we're feeling, look at what we're sensing, so we can make adjustments where needed. So here's your assignment for today. I want you to take a sheet of paper. On the top of it, I want you to write a situation that you are struggling with right now. And then I want you to write down thoughts, write down everything that you think about that particular topic. Then I want you to write down emotions. What do you feel about that particular topic? What emotions does that topic bring up for you? And then I want you to write down the physical sensations that particular topic causes in your body. So whenever you think about that thing, if it causes anger or sadness, how does that translate into the body? Are you experiencing lower back pain or hip pain or shoulder pain or indigestion or respiratory things? Like, all of these things are interrelated. So when we can figure out what we think about something, how it makes us feel, and then we can attach the sensations around it, it will help point us towards some physical issues that we may have that we haven't been able to figure out because of the connection between our mind, our heart, and our body. And we have to integrate them all together in order for us to be happy and healthy. So that is my challenge for you today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next episode. If you're enjoying this podcast, there's two things that you can do for me. One is you can write me a 5-star review. So however you're listening to this podcast, if you could just review this podcast and let me know what you like about it. If you don't feel like you can give me a 5-star review, please email me directly and let me know what I can do to change either the subject matter or tweak the presentation. And then this way I will personally read the email and I will send you back some information based on your feedback. So that would be really helpful. The other thing is if you could head over to my Patreon page, the link is in the liner notes, and just donate a couple dollars a month to help me to create this great content so that you can really be inspired to put your pieces back together or put them together for the first time to really live more holistically, more happily, more joyfully, That would be amazing. Thank you very much for your support, and I'll see you at the next episode.